This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Houston Texans, what up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
Hey!
Hey everyone, welcome to the Texas Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Matthew Briggs, and as always, I got my amazing trio. But my A1 Day 1 Crenshaw is not with us right now. He'll join us later. But right now, I got the space legend making everybody mad on Twitter, taking the male fans completely off. I got Mr. Brown, Chubby Bear himself. BT, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and I was quite surprised, I got to say, about the amount of hate that I got on my Davis Mills video. Holy crap.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And guys, if y'all listen to ESPN 975, you know this guy very well. We got Mr. Cody Stoots from The Wheelhouse. Sir, how you doing?
Blessed to be here, and my first time hanging out with you guys, so I'm honored you guys would have me on, and we'll talk some football. It's going to have fun.
Man, you've been one of the goals to get you on, so we are glad to have the check off. So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jump into VT, a little shout out to you, bro. Y'all's intro goes hard as AF. So BT is always doing heck of a job. Well, Cody,
Thank you.
Let's kick off with some NFL news. There's a lot going on, especially with the Lamar Jackson. What's your take on all this craziness that is called Lamar?
I'm surprised it got this far with the Ravens, and I understand having some reservations about Lamar Jackson from a long-term perspective, especially from the organization that drafted him and knows him as well as anybody else. But my big question when teams want to move on from a player or want to change things up drastically is what's the plan after it? So if Lamar Jackson's not your quarterback in Baltimore, what's the plan? Is the plan just to stink for a year and get a really good quarterback next year? Is that team's good enough to not stink so bad that they can get one of the tippity top picks in the 2024 draft? So it's a very weird situation in Baltimore. And then the way that the league has just been very hands off on Lamar, like nobody even wants to talk to this guy. Nobody wants to sit down and have a conversation with him. That's been strange to me as well. I understand he's missed some games the past couple of seasons, but he was an MVP, went in the playoffs, had a disappointing playoff game, came in the next year, had a solid season, went into the playoffs, won a playoff game against that very team that he lost to the previous year, and he's a talented, proven commodity. Is he one of the best quarterbacks in football? No, but he's one of the most dynamic guys when healthy. And I get that he's not always healthy, but I'll take 15 games of Lamar Jackson over 17 games of somebody who's not nearly as good.
Davis Mills.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with Lamar. It's very curious to see how the NFL has operated. Part of it seems to be the contract. Part of it seems to be skepticism about what type of player Lamar actually is.
So there's a lot of articles coming out and rumors or whatever you want to call it, saying that a lot of teams do not want to touch him because of the no agent issue. Is that a real concern, or is that just false hopes?
I've seen a lot of people compare Laramie Tunsil and Lamar, and Laramie Tunsil doesn't have an agent. He's got advisors that assist him. And the Tunsil deal was easier to do than Lamar's deal. One, he's not a quarterback. Two, he's without a question one of the three best guys at his position.
Right.
And so with that, it becomes very easy to just pay Laramie Tunsil the top of the market or, blow the market away. Lamar Jackson's not one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football. He's really good. On any given year, he could be a top 5 guy. He could be a top 7 guy. He could be a top 10 guy. So there's a lot of nuance to that. I don't know that if a team really wanted Lamar Jackson, they would let that stand in the way of getting Lamar Jackson. That's one of those things that I feel like teams are finding as an excuse to not speak to Lamar Jackson, to not talk to him, to not have him in. Oh, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have an agent. You're just coming up with excuses at this point to not get the guy in.
Kind of like a crutch, like, hey,
Yeah, I'd have Lamar Jackson in tomorrow if I owned an NFL team, and I'd be asking him exactly what he wants, how we get this done, how much money do you need, what contract could we pay you so that the Baltimore Ravens wouldn't match the money. And I mean, it's one thing if you're the Chiefs and you don't want to talk to Lamar Jackson because you have Patrick Mahomes. You're the Bengals. You don't want to talk because you got Joe Burrow. But Atlanta doesn't want to talk, doesn't want to have a conversation. Washington doesn't want to have a conversation with Lamar Jackson. Someone's going to do their behind-the-scenes undercover homework, and they're going to end up with Lamar Jackson. They're going to be pretty happy with it.
I just want to address the comparison to Laramie Tunsil. You're right that it's nothing similar, but just to go more specific on that, Laramie Tunsil, I know everyone's talking about, he did a great job by not having an agent, but he was getting $23 million a year already, and he got 25. What we're talking about, the difference here is $2 million extra. In all reality, he didn't make any more. Lamar Jackson was on a rookie deal, so he was getting about $8 million a year. Now he was asking for close to 50. So the difference between what he got and what he's asking for is ginormous compared to Laramie Tunsil, which was essentially a rounding error if you're talking about salaries.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Lamar's looking for a significant raise. Laramie Tunsil got a little raise, and sort of it seemed like the team was happy to put in the structure of the contract the way that it benefited Laramie Tunsil and benefited the team. There's more nuance to that with Lamar. Look, if he actually does indeed want that fully guaranteed, no questions asked contract like Deshaun Watson got, he may have to wait for a team to find the money for that and to do that. But I will say with Lamar Jackson, it only takes one. All he needs is one renegade, one owner that doesn't care about the other 31 ownership situations, one guy that doesn't care about being friends in the boardroom with those guys and cares about winning, and they get Lamar Jackson. That's all it takes to get Lamar Jackson. It just feels like the brotherhood that is NFL ownership has sort of kept this from occurring the way Lamar certainly wants it to occur.
Well, let's bring this back to Houston. I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing about Lamar Jackson? Which is, to bring this back to Houston, I know that most people are either Bryce or Stroud at this point, but can we get your little spiel about it? Because I'm a huge Lamar Jackson guy in terms of coming to Houston. I think anytime you can get an all-pro MVP level quarterback instead of getting a rookie that could potentially be a bust, you do it. And if it's only 2 first-round picks with the tag, you do it. And the money doesn't bother me because we have $150 million coming up next year. So on that.
So there's 2 Lamar Jackson scenarios that are acceptable to me, I guess is the way I would phrase it. One is Bryce Young is my preference, a quarterback. I like Bryce more than the other quarterbacks. I like getting Bryce with the number 2 pick, keeping the money dry, using it however you want to use it the next couple of seasons, and building around Bryce. That's my number one quarterback desire. Number 2 is trade number 2 and next year's Texans pick for Lamar Jackson. So I would be very interested in having the conversation with Lamar. You mentioned the money. They've got the money. Actually, overthecap.com right now, the Texans have the most salary cap space in the NFL next season. Right. Obviously, the cap's going up, so a lot of teams are going to have cap space, but the Texans have a lot of it right now. Nobody is extremely highly paid on this team besides Laramie Tunsil. I know Titus Howard's due a contract here pretty soon, but that ain't Laramie Tunsil money. That's not quarterback money. So I would be very interested in what I call the thread the needle situation with Lamar Jackson. And it's hard to do. I would venture to say, damn near impossible, and you'd be in trouble if it didn't work. But that thread the needle scenario is you talk to Lamar after the draft. because you didn't draft a quarterback. You talk to him after the draft. You give up the Texans 24 and 25 pick, but you use all the picks this year to help the team now. Then you pay Lamar. That's the thread the needle. The tough part about that, if it goes haywire, if the Ravens match it, if Lamar doesn't like your offer, all of a sudden you're left without a quarterback and you're left without a clear path to get a quarterback. So that's tough. I like the Lamar scenario. I just don't like it more than Bryce Young at 2, which is sort of my preference.
So many variables that you don't, and that's out of control.
Yeah. Look, I look, if the Texans were picking 5th, if they were picking 7th, if they were picking 9th, go get Lamar. Like that I'm pounding the table to go get Lamar Jackson. I like the idea of Bryce Young at 2. I do like Lamar and getting him more than CJ Stroud. I could see where maybe some people would like Stroud more than Young, or even Stroud more than Lamar. For me, it goes Bryce, Lamar, Stroud, and then everything else from there.
Okay.
All right. Well, always late. No, I'm just kidding. You guys make a fast-moving entrance. Crenshaw, tell us what do you think about this whole Lamar Jackson? Does he finally go to a team, or is it a wait-and-see test with the Ravens?
It's going to be a wait-and-see test. I think he needs to just get an agent and just, swallow his pride, or he needs to just kiss and make up and go back to Baltimore. I understand he wants the same money or the same guaranteed money or more that Deshaun got, and he deserves it because he's done more and everything. But right now, it's just real ugly. And then you got the fans turning on him. I don't know why fans turn on players so fast when they don't want to be with the organization. They're saying a lot of bad things about him that these guys wouldn't have said last year. So they're showing their true colors. But he's a great talent. And like Cody said, if we was picking later, go get him. We got the ammunition. We got the salary cap. Go get him. But picking at 2, give me Bryce, Christopher Young, and let's go.
It sounds like a plan. Earlier you said crazy owners. I'm glad you brought that up. The Commanders are looking like they are about to be sold to somebody else. Magic Johnson being one of the purchasers. Cody, what does this mean? Like, is it crazy to you, or are you glad?
It's crazy to me that Dan Snyder's finally to the point where he's going to sell. And the NFL has gotten to the point where they've threatened him enough to make it seem like, hey, if you don't sell, we're going to make you sell. And then that may not work out to your benefit. You hear the rumors about Snyder not even being in Washington right now, hanging out in Europe, and preparing to sell the team. $6 billion after the Broncos just went for, the mid-4s. That is a significant improvement over a team that just got sold a few months ago. Interesting to see sort of the names that have popped up. You mentioned the ownership group with Magic Johnson. There's another ownership group with a guy out of Canada who's a real estate mogul. And, of course, from a Houston perspective, Tillman Fertitta had a bid in initially at $5.5 billion. Well, now the bids are at $6 billion. I got a hunch that if Tillman Fertitta wanted to find another $500 million, he could. He could find the rest of that money to get to $6 billion, and then it's up to Dan Snyder to sort of choose between those offers. Or if somebody wanted to come in over the top of those $6 billion offers, Tillman Fertitta can find the money if he needs to find it. So intrigued to see what ultimately happens if it stays a 2-horse race. But it seems like this thing's going to get done before the draft. And if it does get done before the draft, if we know an ownership change is happening before the draft, who knows what these owners may feel like from a Lamar Jackson standpoint. Maybe they're jumping back in, or maybe they're trading up in the draft. Maybe they really want a quarterback. The Commanders are such a wild card because if they're in transition, what do they do? If the new ownership's already in there and they want to get their hands all over it, what do they do? But $6 billion. I understand that when you sell it, you don't own the team anymore, but I think there's definitely going to be some ownership groups that are going to look around and say, well, if that team got $6 billion, what could our team get in a couple of years? And do we want to get out of the football business and just take our money and run, so to speak? So not every team's worth as much as the Commanders. Obviously, the media market, where they are, that matters. The history of the team matters. But, man, that's a hefty price for a football team, and it seems like they have no shortage of people that want to pay it.
And plus a stadium. I mean, last year you see all the videos of the rain just falling down on fans. It looked like the stadium was just falling completely apart. BT, I'm sorry, Cody. We're going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's part of probably the new ownership is they're not going
Right.
to play at that dump.
Right.
I think FedEx Field is what they call it. I think they might have changed the name. That's what it's been for a long time.
I would say not just water. Remember, there was literal poop coming on.
That's right.
On their heads, right? So,
you got to match that playing level, right? I mean, the play on the field. You got to match it. So
exactly, shit everywhere.
yeah.
No, yeah. So, I mean, I think that, there's a good chance that before the season starts, they'll have new owners. My question is whether they're going to change the name or not. I think that Snyder was an idiot, in my opinion, and for many, many things. But let's just talk about the name. From what I heard from the reports that came out, he could have paid $2 million and got the name Admirals, which I thought would have been a much better name than Commanders. Because anytime I think of Commanders, I think of commies, and that's all I ever call them. And who wants to be called commies when you're representing Washington? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, did this not go through a focus group? Like, you're from Washington, and your nickname is the commies. So what the hell? Like, that was really dumb in my opinion.
I liked football team. I mean, it was unique and different. I liked that enough that they probably should have hung on to that for a couple more years.
Crenshaw, before I go to you, what do you think of this comment? Snyder has blackmail info on every NFL owner. He should have been gone. Do you believe that, Crenshaw?
Yes. 100%. Yes.
What do you think about the situation?
I mean, I just feel like that. Like you said, it should have been gone. They should have been handled it. I wanted to hurry up and end. I'm pretty sure the fans wanted to hurry up and end as well. But he just holding on to his info like how a woman would hold on to info from a guy.
Right. That was a good one. All right. Well, moving on to the next subject. Some NFL rules have changed. I don't want to go into every rule because there's a lot of them. Bet sporting is legal now at stadiums. You now get the number 0 on your jersey. So, BT, I'll start with you. Which one caught your eye, and are you happy about?
Well, let me start with which one I'm not happy about, actually. And that's the rule that teams can have 2 Thursday games, and I'm not the only one. Publicly, RG3, Patrick Mahomes, the Maras, they've all said that they don't like it. Thursday games are tough because you have such a little amount of time to recover. You don't have a lot of time, to change the game day playbook either. So you're always at a disadvantage. And, for an organization that's saying that we care about player safety, that we want to, they were looking into stopping different type of tackles and stuff, but then they're going to give them 3 days to recover. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm sure players don't mind it. I found it interesting, though, that tonight that Clint from 610 said it shouldn't be a big issue. I find it a big issue, actually. So that's the one I don't like. The one that I really wanted for them to actually pass that didn't was the roughing the passer review. The Rams actually proposed that. I think we can all agree, all 4 of us. I don't think there's really much dissent out of there that the referees have been treating quarterbacks like, toddlers. And if they could actually have some sort of review process for this, maybe things will work out a little better because it's completely not consistent at all. Like one quarterback is treated like a baby and the other quarterback getting hit all the time, and it's never called, right? So that's the one that I don't like. The one that I have a question for Cody. This is the one that confused me the most. Why did they change the preseason cut down? So before you were able to stage it out, why is it all at once now? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a detriment to guys trying to keep jobs, find jobs in the NFL. I know that the teams don't like that. You're going to see, I guess, 1,000 players or close to 1,000 players get cut right around that time. And that's a difficult situation for those guys who are the end of the 53 that make it. It's a difficult situation for guy number 54 who doesn't make it. Right. And I know there are a lot of times you hear stories about, hey, teams like a guy, don't like a guy enough to keep him around to the last cut down. So they give him an out early in hopes that he can go catch on somewhere else. And it will be really interesting to see if there's any general managers that benefit highly from the chaos or any general managers that get lost in the chaos, because you're talking about not only probably the last 3 to 5 spots on your roster that you've got to kind of adjust. Remember, it was just last year. The Texans had, I think it was John Weeks off the roster. Well, you knew John Weeks was coming back, so like they kept the guy on the roster and maybe put him on the practice squad. There's so many different things. The practice squad is certainly an important aspect of the roster composition. I know we call it the 53. Nick Caserio always talks about how it's the 53 plus the practice squad, so it's really close to 70 players. And yeah, it's like it's going to be very complicated. There's going to be some GMs that can't keep up. There's going to be some GMs that can benefit from it. So I'm fascinated to watch that. I do want to say on the roughing the passer, I feel like if that rule had passed, we would have seen it just like the pass interference rule. Those guys don't want to say that their friends, the other referees, were wrong. And the studies that the referees released said they only missed 3 calls on roughing the passer this year. And it's like, okay, that's like letting me grade my own test in high school. I only missed 3. I showed all my work. The referees would have just slowed the game down and not turned over any of the calls, and we'd all been twice as mad.
And losing challenges
because they got it wrong twice on Sunday instead of just once. So I think that's part of the aspect. The owners feel like the quarterbacks need to be protected, and we don't need to see 3rd string, 4th string, 2nd string quarterbacks late in the year like we did a bunch this year.
All right. Well, so go ahead, round it off with you. Which one were you excited to see get?
Man, I like that the onside kick alternative is at least a conversation. So they tabled it. It didn't make it to an official vote. Hey, we're gonna vote on it. They're gonna table it, talk about it again, and the rule would be a 4th and 20 from your 20, and if you convert it, you get to keep possession of the ball. You keep going on offense. My co-host Brad Kellner on the Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5, 5% of onside kicks were successful last year. Teams converted. Now, the XFL's 4th and 15. So remember, the XFL and the NFL have a partnership. The NFL's conversation was 4th and 20. The XFL's is 4th and 15. So that's a little bit different. I wonder if they watch the XFL throughout the rest of the year, decide on maybe 4th and 15. 4th and 15 is converted on a 22%. 22%. Okay. So you would quadruple the amount of times where teams kept possession. That makes games closer. That keeps you from having more blowouts. Now, obviously, you're going to have teams that don't get it, and then that team's going to be 20 yards out from a touchdown, and they're going to easily kick 3 or get a touchdown. So you may have a couple of things that lead to more blowouts, but 22%, most coaches will take that chance more than the 5% of the onside kick. You'd still have the opportunity to kick the onside kick. That's an interesting conversation. Most of these things, when they get tabled, don't get passed. But it's at least on their radar. It was on their radar last year. There's more discussion about it this year. They have data from a partner in the XFL to kind of pay attention to. So we may see a onside kick alternative in the future in the NFL. It's closer than it's ever been.
Right. Did you see that game in the XFL where I honestly can't even remember what the teams were? It was this.
It was the Battlehawks.
Yes,
it was AJ McCarron, former Houston Texan.
Yes. And so they came back after really not having a prayer. They came back with because of that 4th and 15. I mean, that's actually been one of the cool things about the XFL is that, you know, a lot of times you watch a game in the NFL, right? And then the 4th quarter, like, what do I need to watch this for? You know, they're 20 points behind. There's no way. They're 21 points. There's no way. This changes that. I honestly hope, really, really hope that next year or sometime soon they do pass it, because that will make NFL games so much more fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do believe. Look, it's gonna lead to more scoring. It's gonna lead to closer games. It's gonna lead to eyeballs staying on games because there's an opportunity to come back and
more strategic moves, plays. You know.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting. I do have one more. I have a question for you guys on the rule change. You can wear 0 now.
Right.
What Texans player should wear 0 this year?
Darnell Washington when we draft him.
Oh, Big O? You want Big O?
Chris, what about you?
Well, to have that number, you got to be good. But I'll say Nico Collins because this is last year, so he got a 0.
I'm gonna go opposite. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Davis Mills because it's gonna be the amount of games he's gonna start next year. So I say Davis Mills. But Chris, what about you? Which one do you not like? Which one you like? Which one you like?
Well, I don't like the 2 Thursday games.
Yeah,
I don't like that right there. That's too much right there. Now, I wish they would change like to college on the pass interference. Like give us 15 yards. I don't like the spot pass interference. I wish they could change that in the future. But mostly the Thursday games and like you guys said, that 4th and 15, 4th and 20, that does sound like fun. But 3%, damn, I didn't know it was that low. That's a low percentage right there.
Yeah, 5% on onside kicks, and then I think 23% on 4th and 15s in the NFL last year. And of course, we know Davis Mills and Jordan Akins can do a 4th and 20, so if they can do it,
don't be bringing that one out there, Cody. We gotta
live. Hey, we gotta live in that pain. I mean, it's gonna stick with us forever.
I'm gonna have nightmares now, man. Yeah.
It's gonna be a mad moment in the game this year.
Lovie Smith, last drive. I like the 4th and 20, but if they bring that in, they got to bring in the onside interviews with the players. Let them cut a promo. I would love it. I would love to hear somebody like Von Miller, Khalil Mack, Jalen Ramsey just talk crap. I would love it, but it's probably not going to happen because, out of control. All right, guys. Well, let's jump into the Texans draft real quick.
The Houston Texans select. All right, we're on the clock, and we're gonna turn the pick, and we're gonna make you a Houston Texan.
All right, guys. Before we jump into the draft, there's some stats that VT came up with, and he wanted me to share them. Number 1 overall draft slot ranks 9th in terms of average career length, 70 games. Number 3 is 70th with 53 games. Number 2 ranked 76 with 52 games. Quarterbacks have the shortest career, 30 games. QB second shortest with 38 games. And the 13th pick in the draft has appeared in the most games in the last 10 years, a 76.8. So, Cody, with hearing that new stats that VT dropped on you, who are we taking in the first 3 rounds? Who do you got?
Man, this is the draft is going to be as fun as it's ever been because we may have an idea ahead of exactly what Carolina's doing because what Carolina does drastically affects what the Texans do. So this is going to be as fun as it's ever been, and it's interesting to watch how the rest of this top 10 shakes out after the Texans because Casario's not been a stranger to mentioning trading up. So if a certain player starts to slide, would he go up and go get him? If the players that he really likes are off the board, would he move back a couple spots like he did last year? This is going to be one of the more fun drafts in the history of the franchise. It's arguably the most important draft in the history of the franchise because you're going to get a quarterback to replace the only franchise quarterback you've ever had with Deshaun Watson departing last year. So it's going to be fun. I tend to hope for quarterback, edge rusher as the first 2 picks, and then just filling out after that. I also am a big fan, if you're sticking and picking at 2 and 12, I'm a big fan of using that extra capital to get you a 3rd first-round pick. So maybe it's a wide receiver that falls. Maybe it's one of these tight ends, although I'm not in love with a first-round tight end as much as some are. Maybe it's you go quarterback, wide receiver with the first 2 selections, and one of these defensive linemen starts to slip, and you want to go get him. So I very much like the idea of using the 2 third-round picks that you have, maybe one of those, some other selections, and jumping up from 33 so that you get the additional first-round pick. And I would hope that the first 3 selections are quarterback. I almost feel like that's a foregone conclusion. It's a quarterback and then wide receiver, defensive end, or defensive end, wide receiver in that order. That's my preference for the top 3 picks that the Texans will make.
All right. Before I move on to the fellas, we all 3 are in unison going after JMS, the center from Minnesota. Are you a fan of him? Do you think we need to go get a center second, third round?
Center is the only thing Nick Caserio didn't get in free agency that I really wanted him to get. And I had a checklist for Nick Caserio. I wanted some depth at the defensive line. I wanted some linebackers. I wanted something fun, which Dalton Schultz turned out to be something fun. I didn't anticipate them getting Dalton Schultz, but they certainly that turned into something. The only thing he didn't get was a center. Now I get some of those guys stuck. Postage stayed in Cleveland. Bradbury stayed in Minnesota. The San Francisco guy stayed in San Fran. The Dieter guy that they grabbed, weird career. I haven't seen a career quite like his in a long time. He started, then didn't start, then did start, then didn't start. Yeah, very strange. I understand the need for it. I wonder if there's that much of a difference between Schmitz and the second, third, fourth best center. And if there is that much of a difference, then make the selection. But if there's not that much of a difference, then let's see kind of how a different position with a bit more priority shakes out. You can't solve everything, but it certainly would be nice to have a more talented option. I did find this interesting. I went and looked at Michael Dieter and some of his college stuff that he had put together prior to ending up in the NFL draft. And he had roughly the same accolades that Schmitz had in the Big Ten. In fact, he had a little more. He was an All-American as well. He was a 2-time first-team Big Ten player, and he was the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. And Schmitz has pretty similar accolades. So, they're not exactly the same. Dieter's taller. So maybe that affects his ability to do this or do that. Schmitz is a little bit shorter, so maybe he's more compact and powerful. People talk about him like he's a plug-and-play guy. It would be nice if, look, Kenyon Green didn't play well last year. I was a big fan of Tyler Linderbaum going into the draft. It'd be nice if Kenyon Green was Tyler Linderbaum and you were looking for a guard and not a center. The center is just so specific, and there's not a lot of extra to a center. Sometimes guards have versatility, can play center, can play tackle. Obviously, tackles sometimes have versatility, can play inside. Centers feel like they're very much that's it. But hey, if he's good and he's going to start for 10 years, then okay, make the pick. It's not exciting, but you know what else isn't? It's exciting winning, and if he helps you win, do it.
Let me just make my argument on why I think JMS is that perfect pick for 33, and he may go sooner. But DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick have said they want to be a run-first team, right? We want to be able to run in the middle at will, necessary on those 4th and 1s, on those 3rd and 1s. And JMS is the best run-blocking center in this draft, so he makes that possible. Last season, even though Dameon Pierce was a beast, we were actually, I forget what it was number, the last or second to last. We were the worst in terms of short yardage situations when we're trying to run the ball. We had the most stuffs. And again, this is Dameon Pierce, who has, amazing yards after contact, and he couldn't do it. And we need something so we can convert on 3rd down. We weren't able to convert on 3rd down in those short yardage situations, and we need to be able to solve that. We also saw Scott Quesenberry basically almost get Davis Mills murdered. So we have to prevent that from happening, whether it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. So I think there's an argument to be made that even though, yes, you're right, the center is not a sexy position, but it's so important for what we want to accomplish that I think you have to do it. And to me, if we don't get either JMS or Tippmann, that's a problem to me. Like we bailed on center for essentially for 2, 3, 4 years, really. It's time to solidify that position.
JMS's NFL comparison on NFL.com by Lance Zierlein, who's a colleague of mine at ESPN 97.5, is Ben Jones. If you signed me up, you signed me up for a Ben Jones-esque player. Ben was not real good his first year in the league, but then he turned into a very nice player. Probably should have never left the building.
Right.
And was fantastic in Tennessee. Got a free agent contract and another contract with them. So hey, if you tell me he's going to turn into Ben Jones, I'll sign up for that.
And he's familiar with the zone blocking Ben Jones was. So yep. I love that. The only reason why I'm not completely, I do want JMS, but if we don't get him, I'm not going to be heartbroken, because this draft is so stacked at position players. To me, it reminds me of the 2011 draft, where it's just every position just has a lot of players that can make an impact on his team. The guy from Wisconsin, there's a couple guys. The guy from Michigan, there's a couple players that I wouldn't mind getting, but I really do want JMS. Kershaw, they're being quiet and all since you're late and stuff. What you got in draft? Where do you want us to go?
Like Cody said, we don't have to get JMS like VT won't. What's wrong with the Patterson guy from Notre Dame? What's wrong with the Michigan center? Why we can't get those guys? I'd rather prioritize an edge and a wide receiver that's gonna make a more immediate impact. I feel like getting Mason should help whoever center we have on day one, just getting him. So we don't have to get the center, that the number one center. We could get the number three, number four, like that. But we need the wide receiver. We need that edge, like ASAP. And we need a linebacker as well. So, we get JMS, cool. If we don't, I'm not too mad about it.
All right, Cody, before we move on. So if Murphy falls to, say, the 26, are you trading up to get him?
Miles Murphy from Clemson?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I don't care what they've done at 12. If Miles Murphy's there again at 26 or within that range, fire up the trade machine and let's go. Because imagine if they ended up with, say, I don't know, maybe you go offense, say quarterback and then Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you're sitting there at 20. Miles Murphy's still there. It's like I know that he hasn't had any off-season, hasn't had a lot of off-season testing. The tape is incredible, and if you are worried about his athleticism, worry no more. I believe he was number 3 on Bruce Feldman's college football preseason freaks list. So he's a freaky athlete. He's very strong, technically sound. I really like what his potential is, and if he's a guy that slips, he's a guy that was the number 2 pass rusher behind Will Anderson in the day after the 2022 mock draft that Mel Kiper did. Kiper and McShay talk about how they hate doing those look ahead for a year, but Miles Murphy, on the weight of his 2022 or 2021 season, was thought to be a top prospect as well. And you've had quarterbacks file in front of him. You've had offensive linemen file in front of him in the rankings. And so if that guy starts to slip, I don't know how far you want to move. 33 to the middle of the first round's kind of a nasty move. It could cost a lot, but the 20s, he starts to slip. Go get him. Go get him.
All right. Well, guys, moving on to other Texans news. Vegas has us 5.5 game spread plus game spread, and ticket renewals that are 90%. I already know Chris he's already checked. Please, let's get this thing going. Cody, does that excite you, or is this Man,
I was surprised to hear some of the ticket numbers to an extent. To get renewals from the people who were there last year at such a high rate, it's a great job by the staff. It's a great job by the organization having something to sell in DeMeco Ryan's. If DeMeco Ryan's is going to raise an eyebrow, you could enter into a new era of Texans football with DeMeco Ryans and a franchise quarterback. And if you get a quarterback at 2, the phones should be ringing again shortly after that. So they're not going to have problems selling tickets here in the offseason and keeping people. If you had season tickets already, you were going to keep them with the DeMeco Ryans news. If you suffered through Lovie Smith, you were definitely excited about DeMeco Ryans.
Right.
I am intrigued to see if there's a bump post-draft because you got a lot of picks. You got 12 picks right now. I don't anticipate them making all 12 selections, but one of them's going to be a quarterback. That guy's going to be the face of the franchise, and the organization hasn't had a face since Bill O'Brien was out and Deshaun Watson decided he wanted to leave the organization. At that point, like David Culley wasn't the face. Like I appreciate what David Culley had to do and what he tried to do, but he wasn't the face of the organization. Essentially, Caserio was. And again, like Lovie Smith was kind of the face of the organization. There's only so far that a coach can get you as the face of the organization. Right. Now, DeMeco, he's been the guy since he got hired. But that's a short span because the quarterback's going to take over as the face of the organization. And I know Nick Caserio is going to tell me it's not about one player. It's not about one selection. Sure, it's about the quarterback in the NFL. And when you get one, look, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are both extremely sellable products to a fan base that needs some hope and needs some excitement.
All right. Well, BT, real quick, I get you. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think that the 5.5 games thing, we really should be better if we land the draft, as long as we're staying healthy and we hit the draft. I can't imagine that we really only have 5-6 games. Like 7-8 is more what I'm thinking at right around there. I also want to say that, yeah, the 90% sounds awesome. I didn't get some clarity though on that. I don't know if that's 90% compared to last year or 90% of just the seats in the stadium. So I don't know how to feel about that. The one thing that I think is interesting, though, that Cal said in that same interview where he was talking about the ticket sales, where he said, I have this here, like the exact quote was, "You want to go into the draft and try to pick the best players, not to fill holes." And he feels that the free agency was responsible and targeted. And I will say the beginning of free agency was depressing. It was later on where free agency actually got good. You remember me on those show, guys, right? Like, I was bitching about what was going on in free agency, especially signing back Eric Murray and then Scott Quesenberry. But then it got good. We got a top 10 guard, etc. The point was that Cal is right here, right? Like at the end of the day, Nick Caserio did do a good job with free agency. He just didn't start out that way. But what does that mean with the draft, right? You don't want to go in and fill holes. You want to just pick the best player. I agree. And I agree with Stoots, right? The one thing that he didn't get is a center, right? So to me, it's quarterback, center, and then best player available. That's how I feel.
All right. Crenshaw, you're a ticket holder. So what's your thoughts?
Well, we definitely be better than 5.5 for sure. When I saw the 90, I was excited about that because last year, I mean, the other team fans were just killing us, man. They was so loud, they was deep, and we don't need to have that no more. I'm tired of that. I had my rant about that, last season. I just hope that we come out on the good end. We've been getting the short end of the stick for years. We've been getting laughed at for years. Earlier we talked about Lamar Jackson, and we was in the Ravens situation a couple years ago. It's finally good to see another team going through what we went through, And they say that, why would you give up a quarterback in his prime like that? Texas is the only dumb team to do that. Well, the Ravens about to do the same thing. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that we're getting positive feedback. I'm happy that we get more listeners. Cody, I know more listeners calling to you guys' show, more happy now. And you got some dumb ones that say dumb. You got more happy listeners now. So that's what I'm happy about. And, just go Texans, man. I can't wait to next month. It's going to be a beautiful thing.
Hey, don't worry. I say dumb things sometimes too. So, and not just the callers. You brought up the fans. We've all watched this team when the fans are invested and excited about this team. It's a real home field advantage. And the one that always talks about it, that always gives the Texans credit, is interesting to me, is Pat McAfee doesn't mention the Texans once without saying, "Oh, they got great fans. They got great fans." He's right. When that place is 90% Texans fans and full of Battle Red and Liberty White and Deep Steel Blue, it's loud and it's a home field advantage. When you've got 50% of the opposing fan base in there, the Commanders had a ton of people there when they were here recently. Like, felt like Eagles, 70% Commanders and Eagles and stuff. So, it's horrible then. But this is a fan base. Like, this is a football city. And really, I'd tell you this. I go as far as tell you this. It's a front runner city. Everybody likes winners more than they like losers. A lot more people show up to Astros games now than when they were losing 100 games. So
the last row, right?
Yeah, you start winning some football games, and all of a sudden people are going to make their way over there, even though it's a pricey ticket sometimes. But I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing like a winning football team, watching them live from the stands, and the Texans do a really good job with game day presentation. Just a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to see it because they haven't found their way into the stadium.
Well, before we move on, I'm glad you and Crenshaw kind of brought up dumb things. We all three heard today in a chat that we were in that if the NRG is sold out with Texans fans, it is the loudest stadium in NFL history. I don't think so. I think that's pretty stupid to say. Arrowhead Stadium would like to talk to you.
Yeah, I feel like the Chiefs would try to sue you if you said
that. Right.
And take you to court.
Yeah. On this episode of Dumb Things Said by Texans fans, like, crazy.
Well, can I address George's question real quick? Because he popped that up. So George wanted to know whether or not I'm still an Anthony Richardson guy. I am. I just know that we're not taking him. There's basically no way that this organization, after winning 11 games in 3 years, is going to swing for the fences on Anthony Richardson. I would love it if they do. I just know that they're not. It's either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. So as much as I want them to take him, they're not going to. So I have to move on. But I mean, if a miracle happened and they took him, I'm popping bottles. Everyone let's go to the club. But I mean, it ain't happening.
I think, like, from a Richardson standpoint, I see it. I get it. I could see how it could turn out really nice. I'm just happy to have somebody else take that risk. We're
not there yet.
I'll live with what the Texans do it too, and hope that guy's good. And even if Anthony Richardson's great, hey, that's a path I didn't want to take, I guess is the way I would phrase it, the way I would say it. And so, I understand it. It's not for me. Everybody's got their like when I go to the blackjack table, hey, yeah, I play $15 minimums. I play $25 minimums. I don't pay the $50, $100 minimums.
Right.
Hey, you want to go play the $100 minimums? More power to you. I'm happy for you to have success playing blackjack, playing the $100 minimums. That's not me.
Right. All right. Well, this is one of the fan favorites, Cody. Before we do, got a little video for you. All right, this is where we get to ask you some questions. So I'll kick it off with my big Texans fan over there, Mr. Crenshaw. What's up, buddy? What you got?
Let me see. I guess I could ask you, who has the best Mexican food in Lubbock?
Ooh, golly. So in Lubbock, so I went to Texas Tech, and then I stayed and worked in Lubbock after I finished at Texas Tech. So when you tell people you were in Lubbock for 7 years, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, no, I wasn't in school for 7 years. Come on. There was a place right across from campus that was called Cezanne, and it was like Chipotle almost, in that they did bowls, they did burritos, but they had this thing called it the Mammoth Nachos or the Naked Mammoth. So the Naked Mammoth was like kind of like a Chipotle bowl, or the Nachos was like a Chipotle bowl dropped on a thing of nachos. They had a bunch of homemade salsas and stuff. I really enjoyed that. I ate that the most. There's a couple of like food trucks that were out there that's, names escape me. You just have to show up. when I'd been there for a few years, like probably a year or so before I left, there was a new place that popped up on 19th Street that did authentic street tacos, and they would do 5 tacos for $5 on Thursdays, which it probably would have worked better on Tuesdays, to be honest with you. Taco Tuesday, not Taco Thursday. But
Is that Cab Rock Cafe?
No, it was like it took over an old gas station, and I don't even know if it's still there. I can't even remember, but they did authentic street tacos, and I couldn't even tell you the name, but I was there every Thursday for the deal, and then I'd go in randomly throughout the week, and I'd just tell the lady, make whatever you got, make me something. So I had all sorts of different things there. It doesn't have as much variety as Houston, obviously. A lot of chain Mexican food places in Lubbock. Not a ton of local or really good Tex-Mex or really good Mexican food, but there are a couple spots. Cezanne's not there anymore. The family that owned it. I've emailed them 100 times asking for recipes, and they've never emailed me back. So maybe I just have to roll. I'll just have to roll into one of their other businesses next time I'm in Lubbock and be like, "Give me the salsa recipe."
Just coming with the bell like a Game of Thrones. Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
You see all these emails?
Right. Well, before I ask BT his question, I got one for you. Coming from Texas Tech in Lubbock area, how great was it watching Graham Harrell play? I heard stories like that. Gary was one of the best college quarterbacks and very underrated player. What's your thoughts?
Graham Harrell is an incredible dude, super nice, was a great college quarterback for Texas Tech. You could tell that he was going to be a coach one day. Obviously, his dad had been a legendary high school football coach for a few years, and Graham was awesome. He's a guy that would get a lot longer career if he was doing what he did now at the college level. Like, he'd be around a lot longer. Didn't have the best arm strength, but could make decisions, could get the ball where it needed to go. And I thoroughly enjoyed Graham's run there. And he is a legend at Texas Tech. And he was the author of one of the most incredible seasons of Tech football that will ever happen. Of course, we remember 2008 with the Crabtree game and what he did in 2008. And he was in the Heisman Trophy conversation. He was awesome in 2007, though. Like, he was really good in 2007 as well. And he even has, to his credit, in 2006, he's got a trip down to College Station where he had a phenomenal finish to the game and beat the Aggies. So Graham was incredible. Root for the guy. I believe he's going to end up as a head coach one day at the college level. I know he's bounced around a little bit, not had a tremendous amount of success in the recent years. Now he's the OC for Purdue. I believe he's definitely going to end up as a head coach at the college level someday soon. He's not even 40 years old yet, so he's got plenty of time to make his way through life. And great quarterback to watch, great guy, and was great to Texas Tech while he was there. You didn't hear anybody say a bad thing about him while he was there. I think he had a girlfriend the whole time he was there, so it's not like he was some playboy or something like that. So
no Johnny Manziel or Baker, huh?
Yeah. And then we went from Graham Harrell to Taylor Potts and Steven Sheffield. So, like, we went to like a straight up quarterback competition. Mike Leach got fired at the end of the next season, and then there was a little bit. There's again another quarterback competition 2010, and it settled down a little bit with Seth Doege. Seth Doege was a really good college quarterback too. But yeah, Graham's the best. He'll hold probably every record forever at Texas Tech. As many as he currently does have. He played 3 full seasons. So, and the guys just don't play 3 full seasons anymore. No. And so he was awesome. It was great.
Real quick, only on college level, who are you picking, Graham Harrell or Patrick Mahomes?
Ooh, if you put Mahomes on the 2008 Red Raiders, they probably still lose to Oklahoma because that was a buzzsaw situation. You weren't beating Oklahoma that time, so they probably still lose to Oklahoma. But I mean, that offensive line in 2008 was incredible. They didn't have any NFL guys on there, but they had, I think, mostly seniors, juniors and seniors on that offensive line. And the defense was actually pretty decent. They had some guys that played in the league for a little bit off that defense. Mahomes never played with the defense. If you dropped him on that 2008 team, they're even better, and they were awesome in 2008. Mahomes is more talented. He had more wow moments. Graham was more consistent and had more wins.
Okay. All right, VT, I'll let you ask your question.
All right, so there's two questions I have. The first one is, I see you talk about your mom's cooking ability and baking ability all the time, and you actually said that you want her to go like on a show. So if you were the one choosing what she had to cook for Gordon Ramsay, what dish would you want her to cook where he would just say, that's amazing?
Man, that's a great question. So I would put my mom's chicken fried steak up against just about anybody.
Okay.
Now, she doesn't make the giant platter-sized chicken fried steak. She makes them nice and small, and she turns out probably 10 or 12 of those every time she makes them. So you got plenty of room for seconds and thirds. I put her chicken fried steak up against anybody. The meal she makes that I could eat it every day, and I try not to have her make it too much because I stuff myself nonstop when she makes it. She makes chicken fried steak with white cream gravy. She makes soft fried potatoes, which soft fried potatoes is you just peel them, cut them up into not necessarily cubes, but kind of like long strips.
Mm-hmm.
Put them in the pan a little bit, saute them a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, steam them a little bit. They get very soft, still like a little bit of bite to them. Those are really good.
That's my grandma's cooking right there, man. Woo!
And then she'll make some homemade rolls. And then if you're dying to have something green on the plate, which I never am, she'll crack open any canned vegetable you want and jazz it up. But she doesn't. When she's making chicken fried steak, she ain't worried about the green vegetables. So, it's chicken fried steak, gravy, homemade bread, and soft fried potatoes. Meat and taters and bread.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That would be tough on a cooking show because she likes to take her time on that. I don't know if she's whipping that up in 20 minutes on an episode of Chopped, but I wouldn't put it past her. And I would finish with either a chess pie or a buttermilk pie. Ooh. Two underrated but very southern pies. So either a chess pie or a buttermilk pie. She crushes both of those too.
All right, BT, your last question?
All right, so my last question is, so you used to put people on trial. Like I remember when you put Sean Pendergast on trial for Sam Darnold having a fat face, right? So I want to know who you would put on trial. It could be like any podcast. It could be any sports DJ, anyone at all. But who would you put on trial and why?
My colleague at ESPN 97.5 and voice of Houston Cougar basketball and baseball, Jeremy Branham. I could send him to the sports fan jail forever because Jeremy one time said he would trade Deshaun Watson for the rights to the name and logo of the Oilers.
Oh,
wow.
No.
That's it. He didn't want any picks. He didn't want any players. He just said, hey, I'd trade Deshaun Watson for the name and the rights to the Oilers. And Jeremy, when he said that, I was so frustrated and upset when he said it. I coined a phrase called Bad Take Boulevard. And I said, Jeremy lives on Bad Take Boulevard, and he's got the biggest house in the community. And so, yeah, if I could have the trial of the century, I'd put Jeremy Branham on trial for that take. And Jeremy knows I love him, and we give each other a very hard time. He's a big Will Levis guy, so I'm excited to watch him be on the wrong side of history with Will Levis.
Once again.
Yeah, exactly. But Jeremy be the guy, and I'd do my best Perry Mason. Well, I guess Perry Mason was the defense attorney, so I'd do my best Law and Order and convict him. There we go.
All right, Chris, I got any more questions for Cody before I let him go?
Yeah. What is your most memorable interview or a memorable moment, period, on any radio station you've been on? Or podcast.
So
besides this one, Cody, I know this one's pretty memorable.
Right. I was at the Super Bowl with the national show that I was on with my current co-host Jake Asper. We used to host a national show on SB Nation Radio, and I interviewed Derrick Henry.
Ooh.
And he was promoting Gatorade. So at the Super Bowl, everybody promotes whatever they're doing. He's promoting Gatorade, and it was the worst interview I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
Not my fault. I asked good question. Derrick Henry was not interested. I just had a recorder. It was just me and him, and I was getting yes or no answers to like, how do you feel about your season this past year? And he'd be like, "Yep." I'm like, all right, cool. So that's the memorable one in a bad way. Some good ways. Sean Payton's one of the best interviews I've ever been a part of. He's magnetic. He's engaging. At that time, he was the Saints head coach, so I didn't know he could almost end up as the Texans head coach. But Sean Payton was fantastic. The first time that I was on 610 and we got to interview J.J. Watt on the show was great. And I remember I was trying to figure out what to buy a friend of mine for their wedding. And I asked JJ, I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going off registry for the wedding. Do you approve of that idea?" He's like, "I only go off registry." I was like, "Yes." Yes. But one of the highlights and one of the ones that I can tell people the most who aren't sports fans is I interviewed Martha Stewart.
Whoa.
And Martha Stewart did 4 interviews at the Super Bowl that year. She did CBS Sports. She did 2 other like huge outlets, and she did our outlet, which we were one of the smaller national outlets that were there. And she sits down, and she's in Radio Row for sports radio. So she's very skeptical about 2 guys who, Jake's in his mid-20s, I'm early 30s. And she's very skeptical that we know exactly who she is. And my co-host Jake introduces her, and immediately I go, "Martha, you're fantastic. We did your spatchcock turkey recipe for Thanksgiving." And she lights up, and she realizes that I know who she is, and she understands that we know her as more than Snoop Dogg's friend. So she and I talked a bunch of different things, and she's got this great baked potato trick, and she just casually slid it in on an episode of Chopped one time. But I was listening, and so you bake the baked potato in the oven. You got it in the foil. When it comes out of the oven, wrap it in a towel, or I got the Ov glove thing, and you take it and you smash it on the counter. You flip it over and you cut that side open. It's the fluffiest baked potato you've ever had. And I talked to her about that, and then we talked about potatoes for 2 or 3 minutes after that. And it was really fun. And apparently the best potatoes in the world come from Maine. I did not know that. I would have told you it was Idaho.
Idaho,
right. What do I know? But Maine potatoes. So Martha Stewart's really good. But I've been very lucky, very blessed in my career. And actually, let me try to think if I can remember the year. It was about 4 years ago, or it had been 5 years ago this time. I was in San Antonio for the Final Four. And I didn't know it at the time that I was doing this, but we got a ton of college basketball people, like analysts, broadcasters, and stuff like that. And I was doing the midday show with John Lopez at the time, and I didn't know that I did this until the morning show was making fun of me the next week. I introduced every guest as, for my money, the best blank at what they do. So the best analyst, the best play-by-play, and I did it probably for 9 guests. And the morning show, which had my good buddy Landry Locker on it at the time, they played a montage of that, and they made fun of me for it for months. But yeah, so some very fun and memorable moments. Derrick Henry's memorable in a bad way. Martha Stewart's memorable in a good way, and there's plenty of other great ones for in between.
Well, now you can chalk this one up as one of your most favorite ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Greatness all around. Also, if you do talk to JJ Watt soon, tell him we have a campaign on Twitter. We're at 69 days of trying to get him on the show. So
nice.
You better tell him.
Hey, if I come across JJ, I'll be trying to get him on. I try to create a partnership with him. Hey, you know what, JJ? You need a media career. I'll be your co-host. We'll do YouTubes, but let me get you on this show first before we start our own thing.
Right. I know these 3 guys, man. They're amazing. Well, yeah. Cody, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody where we can find you on social media and what you got cooking.
At Cody_Stoots on Twitter. At Cody_Stoots on Instagram too, I think. There's some Mama Stoots cooking over on Instagram. So you can catch some of the pictures there. You can catch some pictures there if you want. And then I got a YouTube channel as well. So you just youtube.com/Cody Stoots, the number 1. Because apparently there's another Cody Stoots.
How dare
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to call Elon because at Cody Stoots on Twitter is taken. And that person's only ever tweeted once.
How dare
and their only tweet is, I just farted. So I got this damn underscore in the middle because some flatulent imposter has my name on Twitter.
Hey, it's probably Landry. It's probably Landry Locker. Like I'm gonna get him.
This is gonna be my leading clip for this episode. I'm just gonna say, well, my clip. That's what it's gonna be.
Yeah. Some flatulent imposter. Man, thank you guys so much. You guys are doing a real good job. You guys, I'm honored that you had me on the get list and you got me, and we'll do it again soon. Probably after the draft and chat about how awesome the direction is for the Texans, or how terrible. I mean, it could all go terrible. It's this franchise.
It's the Texans. Don't be surprised.
So, but we're hoping it goes good. I call it the era of good feelings. The era of good feelings is going to keep rolling on, hopefully.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
BT, tell us where we can find you at.
You can find me on Twitter at BrownChubbyBear. I'm in a space at least once a day. So come in and let's argue. You can also find my articles on fanbattlesports.com. My latest article is all about Lamar Jackson. It's a little lengthy, but it's a good read. I also did a video with my good friend Leo and Bab. It's a good 30-minute video within the article as well. So if you don't want to keep searching for stuff, you can read that article and watch that video. I think we did a good job. So yeah, find me on Twitter. Let's argue.
Crenshaw, what about you, brother?
Find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw. I'm everywhere. Talk to me.
And you can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans, guys. Make sure you follow the network's website at fanbattlesports.com. It's at the bottom. Also, we as a podcast are hosting a contest. You do the first 12 picks in the first round. The person with the most correct picks will get a preseason game this year with the new Houston Texans. So go ahead, fill out your bracket. Make sure you follow the podcast. You subscribe to the podcast. It's going to be a fun experiment. So go ahead and try it out. And until then, guys, you have a wonderful night, and we'll see you then.
Go Texans.